Now, the Special Investigating Unit will probe the SA Special Risks Insurance Association over claims and payouts in relation to the 2021 July unrest, which left over 300 people dead in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. President Cyril Ramaphosa signed 6 proclamations for the SIU to investigate different cases, including maladministration at SASRIA and 4 municipalities. SIU Spokesperson Kaizer Kganyago is joining us now to unpack this. And Dr. Kganyago, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So the president, like I said, has signed 6 new proclamations. Let's perhaps just start with that of SASRIA. I believe SASRIA as an entity are the ones that asked for this probe into allegations with what's happening within the organization. How often do organizations bring themselves to the slaughterhouse? Is this commonly seen as a practice?
Good evening and good evening to your viewers. We don't call it a slaughterhouse. I think in this particular instance, it is a situation where they were looking at the kind of processes that happened during that time and the kind of transactions that were the highest number of transactions that were happening and the irregularities that were there. And they realized after doing their own investigation that they needed the expertise of the SIU in order for them to get to the bottom of this. And therefore, we felt for us to be able to do that, we ordinarily would do it in a secondment, but because of the complexity of this matter, we then felt we needed to do a proclamation, and that is why we are here. Therefore, in this particular instance, it's not like we're investigating SASRIA per se, but we are investigating some of the transactions that happened because they were very controversial transactions that were reported.
So speaking on that, what specific aspects of the claims will the SIU be focusing on?
Yeah, we are looking at all the claims that happened during the July 2021 unrest, because at the time, there were total claims that were valued at about just over 28.5 billion rand during that time alone, which is the highest ever. But then there were a lot of discrepancies that you could see, wherein, for an example, in a sample that was done, there were about 422 records were looked into, and then you found that most of these companies could not, 422 of these records could not mesh the registration number of these companies and the CIPC, which means they were fraudulent. And therefore, some of the transactions and the allegations that came our way is the fact that you would find that people were just who pretended or have been working for SASRIA would have gone to people and say claim, and then we'll process the transactions that we want to claim. In some of the instances, when in the allegations that we have, that we had to do preliminary investigation on, you find a situation where companies were registered in the claims, and then later, when you look at where the money went, it did not go to the bank accounts that are attached to the claims that were put through. And such transactions were the ones that were saying, there's something that has gone wrong here, and we need to then get into the bottom of it and then understand what really happened.
And is there a concentration of claims in specific provinces? Are most of these claims from either Gauteng or KZN?
The majority of them are from KZN. With the document that was given to us, we were able to establish that about 18 billion of that amount is from Durban alone. And then the other 0.5 billion the claim was made in KwaMashu alone. And then about 0.6 billion rand was in Pinetown. And then about 0.7 billion was in Pietermaritzburg. Johannesburg only accounts to 7.7 billion of this total transaction.
And these transactions are they primarily that of businesses? Because we do know that SASRIA it doesn't only insure businesses in this instance.
Yes, in the main, it is businesses that we're claiming. And in some of the instances, there's no record that they have made the losses that they say they have done because of the transactions, the way the transactions of SASRIA work. Therefore, it was important for SASRIA to come and ask us to verify these things and make sure that we get to the bottom and be able to recover. Because even if they go to their own private investigating firms, those private investigating firms do not have the powers that the SIU have to take these matters forward. Therefore, we will then look into it. We have got investigative powers, but at the same time, we can take these matters forward in terms of recovery, in terms of taking it forward for criminality if there were things that did not go well. For example, there were instances where they say somebody who worked for SASRIA went and approached people and say, find me people in KwaZulu-Natal who might have not even have been affected so that we can use them to siphon the money out of SASRIA.
And what period are you looking at particularly? Is this only during the time of the unrest, or do you expand it to before and after?
Yes, when we do any proclamation, it will be from July, in this case from July 2021 up until the date of the proclamation, which would have been Friday. It would have been gazetted on Friday. That will be the period. But we also say in the proclamation that if there is anything that we've got to trace either before, which is related, either before or after, we will still follow it up because it is related to what we're investigating.
Now, these claims are north of 30 billion rands, and you mentioned the issue of recovery. Given previous investigations that you have done as the SIU, what's the likelihood of a majority of that money being recovered in the instance that you do find that businesses and people are found guilty?
Yeah, we must start by being clear. We are not saying all the 28.5 billion are fraudulent.
Yes.
We are saying it is the amount that was claimed. Therefore, part of it will be the amount that might have been fraudulent, and those that are fraudulent, we will then have to recover all of it, depending. Because sometimes, in this case, because it is claimed, if it was an investigation where people would have delivered services, the courts ultimately come up with the indication that it must be equitable amount. For an example, you then have this amount that you would have paid. They will say, no, this you cannot bring back because we've got invoices to show that this is the amount that you have spent, but the profit you are not going to get. But in this case, because it is claimed, if they are fraudulent, we are going to have to go and get all the monies from all the affected companies and the people behind it. And if they have used it for other things, we'll have to get their movable and immovable properties.
Let's just maybe touch on the 4 municipalities that also form part of the 6 proclamations that have been signed off by the president. Just unpack for us, what exactly would you be investigating there?
Yeah, it is different things that we're investigating in those municipalities. Let's start with the Mahikeng municipality is one of the municipalities that we are investigating. In that municipality, there were transactions that were done by the municipality. If I remember off the top of my head, it had something to do with one of the contracts that I'm just reminding myself what that contract was, but it was
for goods and services.
Yes. If just to remind myself. Therefore, in as far as that Mafikeng municipality, that was what the investigation was about, and then we have got the Gauteng. In Gauteng, we are dealing with the Department of Health in Gauteng, where we are also investigating some of the transactions of the things that they would have bought at the time. Therefore, and then the other municipality, there are lots and lots of contracts. That is the Alfred Nzo municipality and in the Eastern Cape that we are also looking into together with this SASRIA.
All right, Mr. Kaizer Kganyago, thank you so much for your time. We certainly do hope that we'll get updates with regards to those investigations and most especially the one relating to SASRIA. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We certainly do appreciate it. That's Kaizer Kganyago, who is the SIU spokesperson, speaking to us there about the recent proclamations that have been signed off by